Hi guys, Drew here with a new video, and this video we're going to talk about the biggest winners and losers of next patch for 10.2.5. We got a patch note, I covered it yesterday, but now I'm going to cover the biggest winners and losers for PvP, because I feel like there is a lot of learnings from that patch note. I don't know if necessarily the meta will change, but I think the winners are quite clear and the losers are quite clear, and we'll have to see at the end if we were right about it. But I'm going to cover it because I think there's a lot of learnings we can have from the patch notes, but also from the things that are not written. For example, specs that are unchanged in positives or negatives. And also I think meta could change, but I think for now I'm going to play the safeguard, which is basically that meta is unchanged, but just reinforced with the current playstyle. So let's talk about Evokers right now. Evoker doesn't really have a change on the patch notes, and Devastation has been a very big terror in threes and also in Soul Shuffle. I think right now Devastation hasn't been as good as right now in Soul Shuffle and threes. It is not really cheesy anymore. It doesn't rely on a silly one shot. It actually can just kill you at any point, and with Dragon Rage you can actually just enhance that point a bit further and a bit more safer because of Mastery and how Mastery works for Devastation Evokers. And they got a win actually with the changes to armor. They didn't get any change towards their armor like bonuses and how it works, because male wearers, like for example Shamans, Hunters and Evokers are not mentioned, only plate and cloth. And Evokers actually kind of resembles to plate wearers because they have 75% passive buff towards their armor. So it means that you have 35% in PvP, like physical reduction. Although sometimes it doesn't feel like this because you're quite squishy outside of your wall. But I think in general people are mistaking physical reduction to overall reduction. Again, versus warriors, you're a bit more tanky than, let's say, versus DKs. But also, I think the nerfs towards subtlety rogues, the nerfs towards DK, the nerfs towards like different specs that are actually natural enemies to evokers is going to be quite big for Devastation, but also Preservation. Augmentation is a bit weird to talk about. I think they are just non-existent in PvP right now, and I think the devs, the Blizzard devs, actually does that for a good reason. They don't know where they want Augmentation to be in PvP. So right now there is no real changes towards Augmentation, and I think it will not be happening at least this season. So people are love to play Augmentation. I don't think you're going to have your time in the sun for this patch. I think they will get a rework very soon. Again, it's a prediction, but I already predicted a few things already. So, for example, Retribution Paladin buffs, which we got today. No, not today, but like yesterday, and we will have it Wednesday or Tuesday live. But basically, a big winner. I think they are going to be reinforced in the meta. I don't think they're going to be top 2 spec, like DPS wise. I don't think the Preservation Evoker is going to be feeling like OP, but I do feel like, in contrary to other specs, they come out very, very big. Now I want to talk about other specs right now, which basically are the biggest losers right now. Let's talk about the biggest losers first. I think DK is one of the bigger losers right now. Frost DK kind of got a slap by having a reduction on armor. They already were super squishy versus physical damage dealers. I'm thinking about outlaw rogues, I'm thinking about subtlety rogues, I'm thinking about warriors. Like hunters in general, they're eating DKs alive, and they get like a nerf on that. I think it's a bit silly that Frost DK didn't get anything like at all PvP wise, only for PvE, and that's kind of a slap on the wrist. But again, I think they don't know where to bring Frost DK, and they don't know what to do with Frost DK. But unholy DK also got hit pretty hard. Their necrotic wounds got a 25% nerf basically, because it's like from 4% to 3%, so they lost a percent, which is basically 25% of the value of the PvP talent. That's actually very big. Death Goal got hit, Festering Wound got hit, which is basically also tied together because of the PvP talent and because of how Death Goal works. They also got like the physical damage reduction nerf, which in fact I think is reinforcing some specs into the meta. For example, I think Arms Warrior is going to be feeling better than ever, except versus one spec I'm going to cover a bit later in the video. But I think DK is they're not going to disappear from the meta, at least unholy DK. I think Frost DK currently are kind of disappearing from the meta. I don't think it's meta at all. Some people are like crazy whenever they say that Frost DK is meta. It is currently not. But unholy DK, they might go a tier like beneath where they are right now, but it depends about how strong hunters and warriors are into the meta. And then you also have windwalkers that are actually they're crazy this patch. So I think in general, unholy DKs is going to suffer versus them, and it will depend on how many magic users they are on the meta to actually feel like DKs are going to be good or not. But you still have like CC, and CC can just win games, and that as like by itself just deserves a tier at their own, because they can just CC chain like by themselves. But I think currently they're a big loser on this patch. I would not say that they lose like their spot, but I would say they are close to losing their spot if the meta switches to another meta, which is highly likely, to be honest. Also, a big loser is Holy Paladin. I think the damage buff is quite nice on Denounce, because again, Shield of Righteousness got a buff, which normally should also dribble down onto Denounce. But they got like a physical damage reduction nerf. So basically their armor is going to be reduced. It already feels like you're better compared to a warrior or a hunter or a windwalker. They kind of just switch on you and you can maybe die on that. That is actually like a very big concern I have, but we'll have to see. Again, it's 30% on current value. So if you're having like 40%, it will be reduced 30% from the 40%. So it's not going to be dramatically low, but it's going to be lower than what we have right now. So obviously, I think builds where you're not really going for versatility, because you don't really need it as a healer normally, because you're less likely to switch on. I think right now, if you don't have 30% versatility, it will be very hard for you. If you have like 25% for some reason, because you are like getting a lot of stats for crit and mastery, that's going to be very difficult for you. So I think it's going to be really matchup dependent. Again, versus physical damage dealers, you should be alright because you have double bop. But again, if you're getting switched on, you can just get deleted, or you can just like have to Divine Shield too soon. And we all know what happens to a Holy Paladin that Divine Shields too soon, right? Retribution Paladin though, they got a huge buff. Like it's like damage wise, it's going to be feeling better. Final Verdict 10%, it's a big thing. I think Blade of Justice also 20%, it's also a big thing. I think your I don't even know how it's your Ashes, your Wake of Ashes is getting buffed by 20%, I think. If I'm remembering correctly, 20%. It's going to be also very big, and also those 3 lashes that you have, it's buffed by 28%. So I think your burst damage is going to be higher than ever. I think your damage is going to be very cool and very good. Also, you're hitting with Holy Strike, so again, physical damage like reduction is affecting a bit, not a lot, not everything, but it's affecting a bit, and that, like a nerf on plate weathers, is going to be good for Retribution Paladin. But they also get nerfed by themselves. They could also just die by a Windwalker or because of a Arms Warrior. So again, I think we will have to see if it's going to be a very big winner, but I do feel like Retribution Paladin is a big winner. And then people are talking about Mage and how they are also winning because of the armor buff. Again, it's like 30% increased from what you have right now. So if you have 15%, you're going to get a 30% increase on the 15% of physical reduction. So it means that basically you're going to have like around 5% increase on the physical reduction part of your kit. So it's not going to be insane. It's not going to be not going to feel too much like from what you have right now, but it's still going to be welcome. But you already were very good versus like physical damage dealers, like for example warriors, outlaw rogues. And you also have feral druids. I forget about them too, but also windwalkers. You were like in general very good as a frost mage because you want melees to actually chase you and like get destroyed because of them chasing you. But I think I don't think they are very meta. I think it's good. I think it's like potentially good. It depends in social in threes. I think in threes they're not meta. I think in social they could be meta, but I think they are going to be unchanged. I do think fire mage is not going to be good. It's still going to be like status quo for them. But their natural nim enemies, like for example Death Knights, are getting nerfed, so that's also a good thing. So we'll have to see if they're going to win anything from that. Warrior is actually a good winner. I'm going to say as a warrior, if I'm playing versus a DK or versus another warrior or another paladin, what sometimes I see is that I'm not hitting as much as I should, but with the 30% reduction on armor, it's going to feel better to go for a DK or a warrior or a paladin. Now, again, it also applies to yourself. So it's going to be a status quo in general. Warrior versus warrior, it will feel the same, but then the damage numbers are going to be a bit higher, but we also have a stamina buff from the trinket. So it means that we are going to have more HP as well. So it could be that it will be unchanged, but I think with the nerfs to DKs because of that, and also the unholy DK damage nerfs, I think it could be enough to sway Arms Warrior towards the meta. I still think you're getting countered by a lot of specs. I'm going to come to that specific spec, but I think right now you have like matchups where you're going to be king, and then you have matchups where you're basically just a dog running and trying to survive as much as you can, especially in solo shuffle. It always will depend on what lobby you will get more. Some people say that you get a lot more melees. Some people will say that you get a lot more casters, especially at higher rated. You do get a lot of casters. I do see it already, and I'm not really that high rated right now because I don't spend that much time in social for these days. But I do feel like, again, they are on the way to be having a great time. And the Forcer got buffed for PvE, but again, I think with like some spaghetti coding, we could have some buff on PvP side of things, because again, a buff on PvE side doesn't it's not going to reduce the buff on the PvP side of things, because we still have a modifier which is 0.5. So we'll have to see if it's going to change. I'll make a video like once I can have a test this Wednesday, but because I think we will get a buff because of that. But don't quote me on that. Again, I'm not sure about it, but I do think it will be a buff at the end of the day. Hunters, I think Survival Hunter is a big winner. Again, their armor is unchanged, and they deal physical damage, so you will have a better time versus like DKs, warriors, and paladins. Versus cloth, it will be unchanged except for one class, which I think is, again, I love warlock, but I think it's silly that they just omitted the things about it, but we'll have to see. But Survival Hunter, they got a buff. BM Hunter, to be honest, if they are unchanged, for me it is a buff. I think anything that is making BM Hunter unchanged makes them just stronger. And I think people should always see it like this, especially for very strong specs, like for example Demonology Warlock, Destruction Warlock, BM Hunters, I would say Unholy DKDH, etc. If those specs are unchanged, it just makes them stronger in the current meta, because a nerf would be a logical thing. For example, for BM Hunter, I think it would be logical to nerf that. They didn't nerf it. Well, it is what it is. I think it's a big winner because of that, especially if Unholy DK get destroyed like on armor. I do feel like you're going to like hit very, very hard versus them. It could be like a kill target now, like all the time for you. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I think in general, Survival Hunter getting buffed on damage is going to be noticeable, especially since you have that many abilities, you have that many dots, you have that many everything. It is going to feel like 4% is going to be big on the damage dealing portion of the spec and the gameplay, right? I think they do need like a surviving CD that makes you survive longer as a Survival Hunter, just because of how the nature of the spec is. But again, we will have to see how it plays out. I think it will be like minimal changes until we have War Within anyways. I don't think they're going to rework anything in Season 4. So we'll have to see what's up in the alpha. Once it's out, I will cover it. But I think right now, Hunters are a big winner, especially MM, BM, and Survival Hunter. I think they're going to love this current patch. They get also more stamina. Again, I think the longer the matches goes, the better it is for a Survival or BM Hunter because of the CC that you can provide. The biggest winner, in my opinion, would be Warlock. I think people are not realizing how big the buff is. Again, we don't know if it's going to double dip, but I think it could basically double dip, because we have a class talent which basically gives us demon skin, which is basically like increase on armor. So I think it's 90% currently. So you'll have your base armor, which is like mage, around 12%, 30%, 13%, and you get 90% above it. So it means like it's basically times 2, basically. So you have around 20%, 21%, and that's going to be a buff of 30% increase, and 30% of 20%. Again, it's going to feel like you're going to get around 6%, 6.5%, something like that, increase on physical damage reduction. So it's going to feel like you're going to be as tanky as, let's say, a malewearer like hunters, or as tanky as, let's say, a druid going bear form. So it's going to feel like not druid bear form. I think it's a bit too exaggerated, but it's on these. And again, you don't need to bear form as a warlock, right? You have leech, so you have like soul leech, and you have like passive shields, and you have your shield, your dark pact, you have your death coil, you have sustain. So I think in general warlocks is going to feel like fantastic. I think it's going to be very strong. This is also a huge buff for affliction. I think affliction got nerfed on the soul rod change, which make them actually shadow skull, but with this it makes them very much tanky, and they can also play the PvP talent, which reduces the damage dealt whenever you're going to drain life. That's also a possibility for them as well. So I think warlocks, they're going to be very good. I already feel like destruction and the demonology warlock is not fair, and I play one, so I think right now it is not fair. It's also one of, like, I think this, like, warlock in general is one of the class that is the most represented in threes, like at any rated, at any rating above 1.8k, which is telling. Like, normally warlock is not the most popular spec out there, but it is, right, class out there, but right now it is compared to other classes. So again, you're more likely to feel you're playing a warlock versus you in threes than anything else. In social fight, it's a bit different, but I feel like how higher you go, the more likely you will get a destruction or a demonology warlock versus you. But that is what it is, though. I think it's the biggest winner of the patch, and I think it's going to be even better than we assume, I think. Then we have like some little losers, which is, for example, Balance Druid. I think for the reduction on Moonkin form, I think like it's 20%. You're already very trainable. I think you're very killable for Arms Warrior as well. But I think there's also a little buff towards your roots, which is going to feel like a straight buff, because your deep roots, like I said on the patch note, is not something you're going to take anyways, and they nerfed it because they think, okay, you buff the roots, so obviously if you take it, it will be even more. So they nerf it preemptively. They should just remove that talent, to be honest, but whatever. I think overall Balance Druid is going to be still okay, especially since DKs are nerfed, and they are actually one of the natural enemies of Balance Druids. I do feel like we're going to see them stronger. But then we have like Feral Druids, which are getting a buff on the Feral Frenzy. It could be something good, it could be something bad. Again, I think it's not enough for their sustain and survivability, but we'll have to see. But I think Resto Druids, they got hit pretty hard. I think it's justifiably hard, to be honest. They get 5% nerf on healing. They get 10% nerf on mana regen, which is quite big, let's be honest. They get some buffs on the mana cost on the spells, but also everyone has more HP, which effectively will make you more heal more. So I think they will run in Soul Shuffle pretty quickly. Versus Shamans, you're going to run versus Disc Priest, you're going to run versus good Holy Paladins that knows how to use their Infusion of Light, and I am one that is not really good at that. You're going to run versus Monks, you're going to be like alright, I think. Versus Preservation Evoker, I think you're going to be alright, depending on how Preservation Evoker plays, like offensively or not, with Disintegrate actually refunding mana. I think you have like good matchups and bad matchups. I think your healing is still very strong, but I do feel like you're going to run so I think that is going to be the play in soul shuffle. In threes, it's different because if you can like drink a bit, it's going to be fine. It really depends on how the meta is shaping and if you have time to actually drink. But I'm looking forward to. I think Resto Druid being more in line with the other heals is going to be good. But what I would have preferred is like heal is going to be on the level of the other healers instead of like the druids being on the level of other healers. I know it's easier to nerf one spec instead of like buffing three other specs, but I think the three other specs still needs a buff. Like it's not enough anyways. It's not like you're nerfing Resto Druid that out of a sudden the Holy Priest is going to get a buff, like a huge resurgence, right? So we'll have to see. Speaking on priest, we do get a buff on like armor, we do get a buff on Holy Priest for their throughput, but I do think it's, again, like I said, placebo, because the thing is, Holy Priest, they don't have damage reduction, and that's actually huge in Soul Shuffle. They still lack mana, like Holy Priest will still have issues with mana, you'll have to hard cast a lot, and yes, Serenity is going to heal for a lot, like Holy Word Serenity is going to be big, but you're kind of playing a hard game because you want them to be very low so you have no overheal on your Serenity. Because if you're doing it whenever someone is like 70%, you're basically overhealing like 200k. But if you're waiting for them to be low and you get CC'd on it, you're getting destroyed, right? So I think it's a bit like backwards healing, which is not always efficient. And I think having no damage reduction kind of makes it harder for you to actually have to heal like this. But we'll have to see if the meta will shape up. They get an armor buff again, but I don't think you're highly like suggested to die in those matchups anyways. So it will help in twos in general because in twos you are the target. But in threes, I don't think you have a lot of time to go for the Holy Priest or for the Disc Priest. So we'll have to see. Shadow Priest got a buff, and I don't think it will be like a big thing. They need way more. It's not like about the damage. I think it's more about the tools that they have. They just need like Door of Shadows, like in Shadowlands. That would be actually big. I think that would be like a huge step. Being immobile in PvP is just like so Cataclysm, right? If your Cataclysm is going to come out in 6 months, pretty much, like I think 3 months, even 4 months. So if you're playing Cataclysm and you play Shadow Priest, you will feel the same as how you play right now, except how you deal damage. So it's a bit backwards, but whatever. It is what it is. Disc Priest got, yeah. It's not an like I don't think it will be meta shaped, but I think it's all right. I think like having no nerfs is actually a good thing. And monks, windwalker, a bit of a status quo where they get a nerf on the 2 set, but I think that being said, it doesn't really matter because again the armored like nerfs that we get on warrior, on DKs and paladins is going to weigh way more than the 2 set that you're going to get nerfed. It could be, again, it's 80% reduced, so it could be that there is a world where you're not running with the 2 set or the 4 set. But I do think the 2 set is still going to be valuable anyway, so we'll have to see how it plays out. The DK's already discussed about it. Shaman, I think Resto Shaman is a bit of a winner in 2s, especially because you can have a lot of lava burst damage, stormkeepers damage. In general, you're going to feel good versus a lot of matchups. And I do feel like right now Resto Shaman is in a good place. It just is difficult in social because of the nature of how your totems work. But I do feel like the amount of mastery you have right now as a Resto Shaman, you could really overheal a lot of people that are very low HP. And the same as Holy Priest, you want to heal, but ideally whenever they're like close to dying, because you will have like a big heal because of how mastery works. But I think you don't really need that always. If they actually are smart and they stay in Urban Wall and you have a good macro, you can actually have great games. But often not, you have like someone that is kiting unnecessarily and you get like a lot less value on those totems. Or you have like matchups where they break Healing Tide like instantly, or you have to like you cannot play a pillar, for example, and you cannot hide the Healing Tide. It's very difficult to actually get some wins. And Link Totem is not really good It's really just there, and it can save people, but often or not you're going to destroy your whole team because of that. But I think in general, Resto Shaman is a winner. I think the biggest loser right now is Enhancement Shaman. They got nothing for them. I don't know, man. I think if you look at stats at ladder, and yes, Enhancement Shaman is not the most popular spec out there, but it is not warranted to be like not below 1% of representation. I think it's just not okay. So I think they should get a buff somehow, some way. I don't know how. They keep on nerfing the burst on a burst spec, so it feels like, okay, well, what do you want enhancement to be? Because consistent damage is not going to be your forte anyways. You cannot play consistent damage anyways because you're getting like destroyed by old specs in general. You have to play hide and seek, you have to self-heal yourself, you have to play with the mitigation game, and playing for consistent damage is not going to be the, it's going to be the play, but it's not going to be the play. It's, you basically are defaulted to it, and that's actually a huge issue, but it is what it is. But Elemental Shaman also a big winner. They don't get a lot of changes, if not. Right now I think Shaman is a good space, except if you're playing Enhancement Shaman. I think I would suggest you wait out a few patches before we get anything, because right now it plays very badly. You either win because you have a great lobby and you have a lot of luck that people don't know how to exploit your weaknesses, or you have a lobby where you are unable to carry. Like it's really hard sometimes. DH, huge winner. They don't get a change, and I think that itself is a huge win. Armor reduction is good for them as well, although it's very minimal. But they get unchanged on that. Their defensives are still there. Their damage is still there. Everything is still there. So I think it's a big winner. I think it is going to cement them into the best melee spot with subtlety rogues. Whenever I'm talking about subtlety rogues, I'm still talking about people that know how to play subtlety rogue. Of course, anyone that is new, let's say I didn't play subtlety rogue for the whole season. I play that. I'm going to be terrible at that. I will be making it balanced. But as someone that knows how to play subtlety rogue and know the ins and outs and knows every single situation and what to do, they are like unplayable. So right now, DH, huge winner. I think Subtlety Rogue is also a huge winner because they're keeping on nerfing the burst, which I think, in my opinion, it is not a problem. I think I'm okay for Subtlety Rogue to kill me whenever I'm doing a mistake, but please make me also be able to eliminate them if they're making a mistake, because with double vanish, with the shields that they get, or like the sustain that they have, with cloak making you like a divine shield kind of thing, which is also being able to be reduced because of double vanish, so you have a cloak pretty much every minute, I think, even lower if you vanish 2 times. You have evasion, which is also very annoying to deal with. You also have shadowy duel, which is also being able to CDR their way to victory. If you shadowy duel at the start of the match, you get 2 vanishes, your next shadowy duel will be met with no trinket, and no trinket shadowy duel means you're dead, pretty much, except if the healer knows what's up and he will like try to stop you or try to pre-hot you or pre-everything you. But often or not, it's very difficult to do that in solo shuffle. Also in threes or in twos they are unplayable as well. I think smoke bomb is also very strong. Again, they can also reduce that as well. So I think overall, Rogue is a big winner because they keep on nerfing things, like especially Subtlety Rogue. I think Assassination and Outlaw is fine, but Subtlety Rogue, I think they keep on nerfing the things that don't matter. I think I am at least fine with the damage that they do, because I feel like consistent damage do nothing. But it's frustrating to have like a rogue not being able to be dead, like whenever they're making a mistake. Or for example, if they offensively cloak at the start of the match because they want to have their damage and they're unable to die afterwards, it's silly. Like they have double vanish, evasion, they have shadowy duel to do that on the healer, for example. They have smoke bomb. They have so many things that can actually make them like unable to be killed. And it feels very bait to go for the rogue, but that is my opinion. Again, those are the biggest winners and losers. I covered every single spec, said everything. I think Feral Druid, they are somewhat of a winner, but not that much, to be honest. Who didn't I talk about? I think mistweaver. I think they are still a winner because they don't get a nerf at all, and they get like the other healers on the same level as them. So I think it's all right. Fury warrior, I think it's a big win as well because they do a lot of physical damage, and they got a small quality of life buff the previous patch, so I think it's going to be all right, but I don't think it's going to be like meta. They're still like bottom 3 DPS specs in my opinion. And that's it. I think I covered everything. If I didn't cover something, please let me know in the comment section below. Again, all of this is an opinion. I don't have hard facts right now, but that's how I see the current patch. Please let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Please let me know how you're thinking 10.2.5 will be, and we will catch you probably very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.